The Zygar Dominion, an empire known across the galaxy for its sheer military dominance, had never known defeat. Their fleet, a monstrous collection of warships armed with unimaginable firepower, was said to be capable of obliterating entire planets in seconds. No race, no species had ever been able to stand against them. As their fleet set course for Earth, the Zygar leadership was confident of an easy victory. For centuries, they had conquered star systems without even breaking a sweat. And Earth, with its primitive technology and small population, seemed like an easy target. The Zygar Dominion's spies had watched the human race for years, gathering intel, and the verdict was clear. Humanity was weak, technologically backward, and unprepared for an invasion. They had no idea that something had been quietly developing. On Earth, a project so secret, so advanced, that even the highest officials in the Dominion had no inkling of its existence. Earth's most brilliant minds had, over the years, worked tirelessly to create something that would level the playing field. They had built one ship, only one, but it was unlike anything the Zygar had ever seen. The Prometheus, as it was called, was a masterpiece of human ingenuity. A sleek, metallic beast of a ship, powered by technology that surpassed anything that Zygar had ever encountered. Its systems were self-sustaining, able to adapt and grow more powerful with each engagement. The ship wasn't just a weapon, it was a challenge to the very idea of Zygar superiority. Captain Elias Mercer, a decorated officer but a relative unknown in the grand scheme of Earth's military, had been chosen to command the Prometheus. He was not the typical war hero. No flashy medals, no famous victories under his belt, but his tactical genius was unmatched. He was the perfect leader for a mission that no one else could take on. The crew of the Prometheus, made up of the brightest minds from Earth's armed forces, was ready for the impossible. They knew the odds were against them. They knew that the Zygar fleet could crush them without even breaking a sweat. But they also knew that if they failed, humanity would be wiped out. As the Zygar fleet approached Earth, the tension was unbearable. The sky above the planet darkened with the shadows of hundreds of warships. Earth's defenses, in comparison to the Zygars, were laughable. Missiles and energy shields that could barely hold off an advanced alien warship for a few seconds. Yet even in the face of certain annihilation, there was a flicker of hope among the human commanders. They knew about the Prometheus. They knew it had the potential to change everything. Captain Mercer stood on the command deck of his ship, his hands steady on the controls, his eyes focused on the holographic display of the approaching fleet. He didn't feel fear, not now. There was no room for it. The moment had come. The world watched from below, uncertain, fearful, but hopeful. Would one ship really be enough to hold back the unstoppable Zygar juggernaut? The answer came when the Prometheus launched into space, its engines roaring to life, its sleek form cutting through the atmosphere. The Zygar fleet took notice. At first, they assumed it was just a small human ship, no threat. But then, they saw it. The Prometheus wasn't like anything they had ever encountered before. It was fast. Too fast. Its weapons were deadly, far beyond anything a human ship should be able to wield. For the first time in their history, the Zygar fleet hesitated. It was too late. Before the Dominion could respond, the Prometheus was already engaged, its weapons firing with pinpoint accuracy, its shields holding strong against everything the Zygar threw at it. One by one, the most powerful ships in the Zygar fleet began to fall. In seconds, entire sections of the enemy armada were reduced to rubble. The once invincible fleet of the Zygar Dominion brought to its knees by a single human vessel. And it wasn't over. The Prometheus wasn't just a ship, it was a message. Humanity was no longer the weak species the Zygar had thought them to be. It was only a matter of time before the Zygar realized they had underestimated their prey, and the galaxy would soon learn just how dangerous humanity could truly be. The battle for Earth had only just begun, and the Zygar fleet, despite their numbers, was about to learn a terrifying truth. Never underestimate humanity. The Zygar fleet emerged from hyperspace, their colossal warships slicing through the fabric of space as they arrived just outside Earth's orbit. For centuries, they had been the undisputed rulers of the galaxy, feared by all for their advanced technology and unmatched firepower. Each ship in their fleet was a formidable force capable of annihilating entire civilizations with ease. Grand Admiral Varnak, the battle-hardened commander of the fleet, stood tall on the bridge of his flagship, the Fury, his cold, calculating eyes fixed on the distant blue planet. He issued his orders without hesitation. "Initiate the attack," he commanded. The fleet, massive and intimidating, began to move forward, engines roaring as they made their way toward Earth. The Zygar Dominion had never known failure, and this would be no different. They had studied humanity for years, gathering intelligence on their defense systems, and the conclusion was clear. Earth would fall swiftly, its inhabitants crushed under the weight of the most advanced military force in the galaxy. As the alien ships drew closer, their weapons charged, ready to rain destruction down on the defenseless planet. But then, just as the first volley of energy blasts was about to be fired, something unexpected happened. A bright flash of light appeared, blinding, and sudden and in the blink of an eye, a sleek, human-made vessel appeared out of nowhere. The Zygar fleet's scanners had detected nothing, no signs of any ship or fleet, but there it was, the Prometheus, its metallic hull gleaming with an eerie, almost otherworldly glow. Grand Admiral Varnak's eyes narrowed in disbelief. He had expected a small resistance, perhaps a handful of human ships, but this was something entirely different. The Prometheus didn't look like any human vessel he had seen in the intelligence reports. It was sleek, fast, and much larger than anything Earth had been known to build. It appeared almost like a phantom, darting between the Zygar ships, moving, with an agility that defied logic. The Zygar fleet fired everything they had: plasma blasts, antimatter bombs, energy waves capable of tearing through the strongest shields. But the Prometheus evaded it all. With lightning speed, the human vessel danced across the battlefield, dodging fire with unnatural precision, as if it could predict the trajectory of every shot before it was even fired. The Zygar commanders were stunned, their senses overwhelmed by the sudden onslaught of chaos. They couldn't comprehend how a single human ship could be so advanced, so fast. Grand Admiral Varnak watched in frustration as his fleet tried to adjust to the unexpected threat, but it was too late. In a heartbeat, the Prometheus launched its first counterattack, firing weapons that seemed to bend space itself. A pulse of energy shot out, hitting one of the Zygar warships dead on. The ship barely had time to react before its entire hull erupted in a flash of bright, devastating light. The first Zygar vessel fell, its remains floating in space, shattered and unrecognizable. The rest of the fleet stared in stunned silence, unable to process what had just occurred. The most advanced warship in their entire fleet had been obliterated in seconds by this mysterious human vessel. The remaining Zygar ships scrambled to reorganize, but they couldn't anticipate what happened next. The Prometheus didn't stop. It moved with the fluidity of a predator, weaving through the Zygar ranks with unearthly grace. Its weapons fired again, tearing through another Zygar ship with ease. The Zygar forces began to panic, their confident demeanor faltering as they realized they were being systematically outmatched. The Prometheus, with its speed and precision, was like a force of nature, and no matter how hard the Zygar tried to retaliate, they couldn't catch it. Captain Elias Mercer, commanding the Prometheus from inside, had a calmness in his eyes that belied the intensity of the battle around him. He was a master strategist, using every ounce of the ship's advanced capabilities to dismantle the enemy. His orders were precise, his mind calculating every move, knowing that this moment was crucial not just for Earth, but for humanity's very survival. In what felt like no time at all, the Zygar fleet was in chaos. Ships were scattered, retreating, firing wildly, anything they could do to try and stop the relentless assault of the human vessel. Yet, with each passing second, the odds became clearer. The Prometheus was winning. It wasn't just a human ship. It was the embodiment of human ingenuity, a testament to how far Earth had come. The Zygar forces were no longer the apex predators of the galaxy. In the face of the Prometheus, they were nothing more than prey. And as the battle raged on, it became evident this encounter would be the beginning of a shift in the balance of power, one that the Zygar Dominion could never have predicted. The galaxy would soon learn that humanity, against all odds, was not to be underestimated. Grand Admiral Varnak stood rigidly in front of the massive viewing window on his flagship, the Fury, staring out at the chaos unfolding before him. His fleet, once the unquestioned ruler of the galaxy, was crumbling before the might of a single, human vessel. The Prometheus. A ship that defied all understanding of physics, speed, and weaponry. It moved through the battlefield like a shadow, seemingly bending the very fabric of space itself. Energy blasts that would have obliterated anything, in their path instead ricocheted off invisible shields, or were deflected by a sudden impossible warp in space. Every time the Zygar fleet fired, it was as if the Prometheus anticipated their moves, weaving through the fire as though it knew exactly where the shots would land before they were even launched. Varnak's fists clenched at his sides as another one of his ships was taken out in an instant. The Prometheus wasn't just fighting. It was manipulating the battlefield, warping the very laws of physics that the Zygar had relied on for centuries. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Riva, stood beside him, her face pale with disbelief. She had been a strategist in the Zygar Dominion for years, studying human defenses and tactics, but nothing in her knowledge had prepared her for this. "Admiral," she said in a strained voice, "this isn't just a ship. It's something more, something far beyond anything we've encountered." She paused, looking out at the devastation. Could it be that humanity has unlocked a power we've never seen? A weapon or technology that surpasses even our own? Varnak's eyes narrowed. The thought had crossed his mind as well, but he refused to believe it. The Zygar Dominion had always prided itself on its technological superiority. The best minds in the galaxy had worked tirelessly to ensure that their empire remained unchallenged. Yet here they were, fighting a species they had considered nothing more than an easy conquest. His pride and his rage simmered beneath the surface, but Varnak knew something had to be done. He couldn't allow his fleet to be destroyed by this human anomaly. "Order the fleet to engage with everything we have," Varnak growled, his voice hard. "Throw every weapon at it. We cannot allow this monstrosity to exist any longer. We will crush it, or we will die trying." Lieutenant Riva hesitated. She could see the panic beginning to spread through the ranks of their fleet, but she also saw something else in the human ship's movements. There was no hesitation, no confusion. The Prometheus was calculated, deliberate in every action. It was like it knew exactly what was going to happen, always one step ahead. Even the most advanced Zygar weapons, which had torn through countless civilizations before, seemed to falter in the face of this human creation. Varnak's command was quickly relayed, and the entire fleet engaged in a coordinated assault, unleashing waves of energy blasts, antimatter weapons, and gravity wells. Yet no matter how many attacks they launched, the Prometheus responded in kind, dodging, deflecting, and striking back with deadly accuracy. It was as if the ship itself was alive, aware, and in full control of the battlefield. On Earth, millions of eyes were glued to the broadcasts of the battle. For the first time in history, humans were witnessing their species not just survive an invasion, but fight back, against an enemy they had no business challenging. News outlets broadcasted every moment, with experts scrambling to explain what was happening. The Prometheus, A ship of human design was making mincemeat out of a superior alien fleet. The excitement was palpable, but so was the fear. No one could say how long humanity's luck would last. How much longer could one ship hold off an entire alien armada? But as the battle raged on, the Zigar fleet began to panic. The once unbreakable confidence they had carried into the fight was now faltering, replaced by confusion and fear. Every time they thought they had the upper hand, the Prometheus would shift the odds in its favor, its mysterious abilities turning the tide once more. It was a weapon they could not counter, a ship they could not predict. And so, a ripple of unease spread through the Zigar ranks. Riva's words echoed in Varnak's mind. Could humanity have unlocked something greater than we ever imagined? As another of their ships was torn apart by a precise shot from the Prometheus, Varnak's thoughts grew darker. If this human vessel was only a glimpse of what Earth was capable of, then the galaxy had just entered a new era, one where the Zigar Dominion might no longer be the apex power. The thought unsettled him, but it also lit a fire of determination in his chest. The Zigar had never faced anything like this before, but they would not surrender without a fight. It was clear now that the true nature of this battle wasn't just about defeating Earth, it was about survival. And Varnak had no intention of letting this new threat take away everything his empire had built. But for the first time, he couldn't shake the feeling that they might already be too late. The ripple effects of the Prometheus's arrival would change everything. And the Zigar Dominion, in its arrogance, had underestimated just how dangerous humanity could be. The Prometheus, like a force of nature, continued to dismantle the Zigar, fleet with an almost eerie precision. Ship after ship fell under its relentless assault, reduced to debris in seconds, and with every victory, humanity's hope grew. But for the Zigar Dominion, the mounting destruction was becoming unbearable. Their pride, their arrogance, everything they had stood for was crumbling in the face of a single human vessel. They could not allow it to continue. Grand Admiral Varnak paced furiously on the bridge of his flagship, his mind racing. His fleet, the pride of his empire, was being decimated, and no matter how many times they attacked, the Prometheus adapted, countered, and struck back harder. Desperation set in as he realized that traditional tactics were useless. There had to be something else, something stronger, something that could finish this. "Prepare the Titan's fury," Varnak ordered, his voice grim. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Riva, looked at him with a mixture of doubt and fear. The Titan's fury was not just another warship. It was the most powerful weapon the Zigar Dominion had ever built. It was a behemoth, twice the size of the Prometheus, and equipped with advanced weapons that were said to be invulnerable to any force in the galaxy. It was their last hope. The moment the orders were given, the Titan's fury began its descent toward the battlefield. As it emerged from the shadows of the other ships, its massive silhouette loomed over the Prometheus, casting a long shadow. Its weapon systems powered up, and the air seemed to crackle with an oppressive energy. This was it. This was the endgame. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Captain Elias Mercer stood unmoving, watching the incoming threat. The Titan's fury wasn't just a ship. It was the pinnacle of Zigar engineering, an unrivaled weapon that could flatten entire fleets with a single shot. It was so large, so powerful, that the thought of facing it sent a chill through the crew. But Mercer didn't flinch. He had prepared for this. He had always known that the Zigar would eventually reveal their ultimate weapon, and he had a plan, though it was a secret that no one, not even his own crew, knew. "All systems, stand by," Mercer said calmly, his voice steady as the ship's various systems hummed to life. The Prometheus had already proven its might, but now it was time to reveal the truth. As the Titan's fury fired its first devastating blast, Mercer's voice rang out with a command that echoed through the ship. "Activate phase shift. The crew had no idea what it meant, but they obeyed, activating a series of systems they had never seen before. And then, in a moment that left everyone on edge, something remarkable happened. The Prometheus began to shimmer, as if reality itself was bending around the ship. Energy blasts from the Titan's fury passed harmlessly through the shimmering barrier, as though they had no effect at all. The ship seemed to disappear and reappear, its form distorting like a mirage, moving with the kind of speed and unpredictability that defied all logic. It wasn't just moving, it was warping space itself. As the crew watched in awe, Captain Mercer turned to his console, his face betraying no emotion. The Prometheus wasn't just powered by conventional means. Beneath the ship's sleek exterior, there was something far older, far more powerful, an artifact discovered deep within Earth's oceans. It was an ancient energy source, a remnant of a civilization that had long since vanished. For years, the world's top scientists had struggled to understand it, but they hadn't yet unlocked its full potential. The Prometheus was the culmination of a secret project, a fusion of human ingenuity and the alien technology hidden beneath the ocean's depths. The artifact, once thought to be an enigmatic relic, now revealed its true power. It allowed the Prometheus to absorb and store energy almost instantaneously, drawing from the very fabric of the universe. And with this energy, the ship could alter space-time itself, creating unpredictable distortions that allowed it to evade incoming fire, displace energy attacks, and even turn the enemy's weapons against them. The Prometheus was no longer just a ship. It was a living weapon, a product of a forgotten civilization's might, now wielded by humanity. As the Titan's fury launched another barrage, Mercer calmly issued the command to fire. The Prometheus unleashed its own weapons in response, blasts of energy so powerful that they seemed to distort the space around them. They struck the Titan's fury with pinpoint accuracy, causing massive explosions that ripped through the ship's hull. The Zygar behemoth, so confident in its power, was now on the defensive. For the first time, the Zygar fleet was truly shaken. Varnak watched helplessly as his ultimate weapon was torn apart. It was clear now. The Prometheus wasn't just a threat. It was an entirely new force in the galaxy, one that had been hidden from the Zygar for centuries. The unknown power that fueled the ship, an ancient alien artifact, had given humanity the edge they needed. And now, as the Prometheus continued to tear through the Zygar fleet, it was clear that Earth had far more to offer than the Zygar had ever imagined. The tide of the battle had shifted irreparably, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Grand Admiral Varnak was on the edge of losing everything. The Prometheus had proven itself far beyond the scope of anything he had ever imagined, and, despite the sheer size and firepower of his fleet, they couldn't seem to land a blow on the elusive human vessel. The very thought of being outclassed by a single human ship was unbearable. With his pride and his empire hanging by a thread, he gave the order to his remaining ships to concentrate all their firepower on the Prometheus. They had to overwhelm it. They had to break through its defenses. The Zygar fleet shifted into position, encircling the human ship on all sides. Every weapon in their arsenal powered up, their cannons glowing ominously with the promise of destruction. This was their last chance, their final attempt to crush the human menace before it could destroy them completely. For a moment, it seemed like they might succeed. The Prometheus was surrounded, its maneuverability restricted by the overwhelming numbers of the Zygar forces. Fire erupted from every direction, and Varnak believed they had finally cornered their prey. Yet, as the first salvo hit the Prometheus, something unexpected happened. The ship didn't simply absorb the blasts or dodge them. It activated something entirely new, something none of the Zygar had anticipated. A brilliant pulse of energy erupted from the human ship, a massive electromagnetic pulse that sent shockwaves through the entire battlefield. The Prometheus released a devastating EMP burst, and in that instant, The Zygar fleet was plunged into chaos. Weapon systems that had been locked onto their targets went dark. Engines sputtered and died as power grids were disrupted across the fleet. Communication channels scrambled into static, and Zygar ships, once sleek and efficient, became motionless, stranded in space, vulnerable. The carefully orchestrated attack faltered as the entire fleet was suddenly frozen in time. For the first time, the Zygar forces were helpless. They had no firepower, no coordinated defense, and no way of responding to the relentless assault of the Prometheus. In that fleeting moment of chaos, Captain Elias Mercer saw his opportunity. His fingers moved with expert precision over the control panel, his face calm despite the madness unfolding around him. With a single command, he activated the ship's most advanced feature, the battle phase. The Prometheus, its engines roaring, back to life, shot forward with a speed that left the alien ships struggling to react. In seconds, the human vessel was cutting through the stunned ranks of the Zygar fleet, moving with such grace and power that it was as if it had become a living being, dancing through the confusion. The Prometheus sliced through the first line of Zygar ships, its weapons firing in perfect synchronization. Each shot was precise, each strike calculated. The Zygar fleet had no time to regroup, no time to retaliate. Ships that had been momentarily frozen in space exploded into nothingness, their hulking forms disintegrating as the Prometheus tore through their ranks with lethal efficiency. The few remaining Zygar vessels that managed to regain power were too slow, too disorganized to mount any defense. The human vessel seemed unstoppable, a blur of destruction as it tore through their fleet like a hot knife through butter. Varnak's mind raced, his hands gripping the armrests of his command chair. His eyes darted from monitor to monitor, unable to believe what he was seeing. The very fleet he had led to victory after victory was now falling apart before his eyes. His officers were scrambling, trying to regain control, but it was already too late. The Prometheus was a juggernaut, and there was no stopping it now. As the battle raged on, some of the Zygar ships began to retreat, realizing that victory was no longer within reach. The once confident fleet now knew that their defeat was inevitable. Their most powerful warships, their ultimate weapon, were falling apart under the relentless assault of the Prometheus. The realization hit them hard. There was no way to overpower this human ship. There was no more hope for victory. In the chaos of the retreat, Varnak's gaze lingered on the remains of his once mighty fleet, now reduced to burning wreckage. The battle had turned in an instant. The Zygar fleet was collapsing, its once unstoppable force shattered by the ingenuity of a single human ship. And as he looked on, Varnak knew that his empire would never be the same again. The humans had proven themselves to be far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. They had not only fought back, they had won. With the battle slipping through his fingers, Varnak gave one final order, his voice grim and resigned. "Withdraw. All ships, retreat to the nearest star system." But deep down, he knew it was too late. The Zygar Dominion's reign of terror had come to an end, and the galaxy would now have to reckon with the rise of humanity. The turning point had come, and it was clear that Earth was no longer a helpless world. The Prometheus had proven it. Humanity would not be defeated. The battle had reached its crescendo. The once proud Zygar fleet, now a broken shadow of its former glory, was desperately trying to flee, its remaining ships scattering like terrified prey before the relentless pursuit of the Prometheus. Captain Elias Mercer was relentless, refusing to let a single ship escape. The Zygar forces, despite their superior technology and vast numbers, were no match for the human vessel whose capabilities seemed to grow with each passing moment. The Prometheus had become more than just a ship. It was a symbol of humanity's strength, an unstoppable force that tore through the heart of the Zygar Dominion without mercy. Grand Admiral Varnak watched as his fleet crumbled before him. His anger, already boiling over, turned to pure rage. His once feared empire, which had ruled with an iron fist, was now on the brink of total destruction, and it was all because of a single human ship. The thought of his defeat was unbearable, and yet he could not deny the truth that stared him in the face. His fleet was shattered, and victory was slipping further out of reach with every passing moment. Desperation gripped Varnak's heart as he watched the final remnants of his fleet get torn apart by the Prometheus. In his fury, he made a decision. If he was to go down, he would do so on his terms. The last hope of the Zygar Dominion rested on one final gamble, a one-on-one duel, the likes of which had never been seen in the history of the galaxy. He would face Captain Mercer in the heart of space itself, hoping that his superior size and firepower could still win the day. He issued the challenge, a direct message to Mercer, his voice cold and filled with barely contained fury. "Captain Mercer, we meet now, one-on-one. You and me. The final battle." Mercer received the transmission with calm detachment, his eyes scanning the empty void of space. The Prometheus had already proven itself as an indomitable force, but the challenge was something Mercer knew he couldn't ignore, a duel to the death. Varnak's ship, the Titan's Fury, loomed large before him, an enormous vessel that dwarfed the Prometheus in both size and weaponry. But Mercer knew that raw power was not the only factor that determined a victor in space. He had his own advantages: speed, agility, and, most importantly, the advantage of being the one who had already shattered the Zygar fleet's resolve. The battle would not be decided by size alone. As the two ships faced off in the cold emptiness of space, Varnak's fury burned brighter than ever. He unleashed everything the Titan's fury had to offer: lasers, plasma cannons, and energy pulses that tore through the void like lightning. He was determined to destroy the Prometheus and take down Mercer once and for all. But Captain Mercer remained unflappable. His movements were swift and calculated, his ship dodging, weaving, and countering each of the Titan's Fury's attacks with surgical precision. Mercer's tactical brilliance shone through as he used the very weapons of his enemy against them. In a breathtakingly strategic move, Mercer managed to turn the Titan's Fury's own weaponry against it. The Prometheus darted in close, closer than Varnak had ever anticipated, and with a precise strike, Mercer redirected the Titan's own energy blasts back at its core. The massive warship groaned under the weight of its own destructive force. For a split second, it seemed as though the giant ship might hold firm, but the strain proved too much. The Titan's Fury exploded in a brilliant flash, its massive frame crumbling into pieces as the Prometheus swiftly pulled away. For Varnak, the world seemed to stop in that instant. His greatest weapon, the last bastion of the Zygar Dominion's power, was now nothing but a burning wreck in the cold void of space. The silence that followed the destruction of the Titans. Fury was deafening, and in that moment, Varnak's resolve shattered. The Zygar fleet, what little remained of it, had nowhere left to run. They were broken, leaderless, and utterly defeated. In the aftermath of the battle, the remaining Zygar ships, realizing the futility of their position, surrendered without a fight. There was no longer any hope for the Zygar Dominion. In just a few hours, the once feared empire had been reduced to ruins by a single human vessel, driven by the unshakable resolve of its captain and crew. The Prometheus had shattered the Zygars, hold over the galaxy, and humanity, once on the brink of destruction, had emerged as the victors. Grand Admiral Varnak, defeated and broken, watched as the last of his fleet surrendered. The weight of the loss pressed heavily on him. He had underestimated humanity. He had believed that the Zygar Dominion was untouchable, that no one could challenge their might. But now, as he drifted in space, the last remnants of his empire, in ruins, he knew the truth. The Zygar Dominion had fallen, not by the hand of an entire race of conquerors, but by the might of one human ship and one human captain. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. The Zygar Dominion, Once a galactic power that had dominated the stars with its overwhelming strength and advanced technology, was now a shadow of its former self. The Prometheus had proven to be the turning point, the single human vessel that had shattered the might of an empire. As the remnants of the defeated alien fleet drifted into the void, the people of Earth erupted in celebration. Humanity had done the impossible. It had not only survived, but it had triumphed against an enemy that was thought to be unbeatable. The Prometheus, with its mysterious power and unstoppable force, had become a symbol of hope for all of humankind. Captain Elias Mercer, the man at the helm of the Prometheus, returned to Earth to a hero's welcome. The world had been on the brink of annihilation, but thanks to Mercer's leadership and the courage of his crew, Earth had been saved. He was hailed as a hero, a savior, and a symbol of humanity's resilience. The people cheered his name, and the world seemed to unite in the aftermath of the victory. For a moment, it felt as though nothing could threaten Earth again. But as the celebrations died down, the true implications of the victory began to sink in. The Zygar Dominion had been defeated, yes, but the galaxy was vast and filled with far more dangers than humanity had ever imagined. The Zygar were only one piece of the puzzle, and their fall might have set off a chain reaction. The Prometheus, the ship that had turned the tide of battle, was powered by an ancient alien artifact, one that had given humanity the power to defeat a superior enemy. But Mercer knew something that many did not. The artifact was not unique. It was just one of many, scattered across the galaxy, left behind by a long-forgotten civilization. And if the Zygar had known about these artifacts, then other civilizations might be searching for them as well. The revelation was both thrilling and terrifying. The Prometheus had been humanity's key to survival, but it was also a beacon, a signal to other, far more powerful forces that might now be drawn to Earth's location. The galaxy was no longer a distant unknown. It was a place filled with ancient secrets, powerful artifacts, and civilizations that might have their own agendas. Humanity, once insignificant in the eyes of the stars, was now at the center of something much larger, something far beyond anything they had ever dreamed of. As Mercer sat in the quiet of his quarters looking out at the stars, he realized that the journey of the Prometheus was just beginning. The war against the Zygar was only the first chapter in humanity's story. There were others out there, others who might seek the power of the artifacts for themselves. Some might want to destroy Earth, while others might seek to ally with humanity. No one knew what the future held, but one thing was certain: Earth had proven itself capable of standing up to galactic powers. Humanity had taken its first step into the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same. The questions that loomed over Earth were now more pressing than ever. What would humanity do with its newfound power? Would it rise to dominate the stars, or would it be destroyed by forces far beyond its control? The Prometheus had already opened a door, and through it, humanity could see the vast unknown stretching out before them. The future was uncertain, and danger still lurked in the dark corners of the galaxy, but the people of Earth had shown that they would not go quietly into the night. They would fight for their place among the stars. As the Prometheus prepared for its next mission, the crew braced themselves for whatever lay ahead. The war for the future of Earth had just begun. The stars beckoned, and with them, the potential for both incredible triumph and unimaginable destruction. Humanity had unlocked a door, but it was unclear whether they would walk through it as conquerors or be consumed by what awaited on the other side. But one thing was undeniable: humanity's true potential had been revealed, and there was no turning back. The Prometheus's journey was far from over, and the galaxy was about to learn just how far humanity was willing to go to protect its future.